Alright, so we have these little squares. And there's a couple of issues we have here. First of all, we have these two colors. They're cut on the bias. This is all bias, so you can see it's stretchy. We want to make sure, and we've sewn it and we've pulled it and stuff. We want to make sure that they are actually the right size. They haven't stretched out of shape. And how we're going to do that is put this diagonal line on this diagonal line. It's going to be 1.5 inches. They're going to end up being 1.5 inch squares. Now, I gave you lots of reasons for why we're trimming it. They're on the bias, they're really small. We want to make sure that we come up with the right, with exactly the right size. Blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, if it was huge, we still want it to be the right size. If you're trimming up your squares, it's always better to trim up, to make it a little bit bigger and then trim it up, because then you're going to end up with a square quilt or rectangular quilt with good squared corners, with good the distances across will be consistent all the way up the quilt. The distances at the head and foot are going to be consistent. It's easier to quilt. Making sure that you trim up the squares that you have to the right size will ensure that the rest of all your measurements are better. So I'm doing it because this is small and it's on the bias and it's all of those things, but I do it anyway when I have larger squares, larger quilt blocks. Really important part. And when it's this tiny and you've got this many little pieces, you know what, it's time consuming. It's labor intensive, making sure that all of these things are just exactly perfect. But in the end, I'm going to end up with a quilt that I like, a quilt that I'm not unhappy because it's all cattywampus. For these, we got them done. Now what we need to do is put these together for our block.